No gent. Use a 6 string? Okay. Sure. How's everybody doing tonight, huh? Alright, we're waiting on Blue to join us right now. $20 Fender tone. Nice. Where's my shit at? Fucking around with the HX Stomp. Just trying to get different tones. There we go. Rad Nile shirt. Thank you. This was one of my Christmas gifts for my wife this year. If anybody has any questions for me or Blue, go ahead and feel free to leave them down below. Tuning, this one's C standard. Hey, there's Blue. Let me send him a little request here. Hang on. All right, send him one.
What's up?
What's up, man?
Nothing much. Sorry about the old delay and all that good stuff.
Oh, you're good.
Been a busy week of rehearsals, so we kind of been on kind of a crazy schedule here. So.
Right. No, you guys are getting ready to go on tour. I understand.
Yeah, we leave in like 2 or 3 days, so we've just been doing the hitting it every day, kind of doing the rehearsal thing, remembering how to be a band again, you know.
Right. I can't remember it. Isn't this the first tour you guys have done since?
This is the first tour we've done since pre-pandemic.
Wow.
We Fit for an Autopsy we were like direct support for Thy Art Is Murder, doing a US tour in like April of 2020, and we played one show in Philly and then went home. So, you know, it's been a hot minute. It's basically been 2 years, so, you know, fucking
right.
Stoked to fucking actually do it. It's nice to be playing in front of loud amps again.
I bet.
It's the best part, obviously.
Right. It's like everything else is just an excuse to break out all the loud stuff.
Dude, there's a reason why I play in as many bands as I do, is so I can have that many rigs and justify
Right.
it.
I whenever I was actually in an active band and everything, our singer, I was always like the noodly guitar player that was always sitting there goofing off when
Yeah.
someone's trying to talk, sadly. But
Oh yeah.
it was
No, there's
like,
always going to be somebody. Listen, you can't have anybody have the opportunity to talk. So
right. It's like, well, all my stuff is here. I only get to play it when we come to practice. So
exactly. Well, that's
you
why
know?
you need an at-home rig. You need the practice rig. That's why I got rigs for different practice spaces. That's the key.
That's awesome. It's
Oh,
also
yeah.
an excuse to buy more too. So
Dude, absolutely, absolutely.
yeah. Real quick because I'm forgetful, somebody chimed in there in the chat real quick. What the best noise gate is for bass guitar?
My answer is probably going to be both guitar and bass. I'm a Fort and Zool guy, hard.
Oh yeah.
With that, I don't know how familiar you are with the Fort and Zool or anybody else's, but the beauty of what I love about the Fort and Zool is it has two inputs. It's got your normal guitar input, and then you send it a clean signal too. Like for bass, I send it my normal distorted signal because I play pretty distorted bass, but I also send it my parallel clean out of my distortion pedal too. So I feed it a clean signal, so it reads, I guess we'll call it. Well, it'll read like super tight stuff. Like if you have a super tight stop, whereas your normal gate has to wrangle, whatever wacky fucking super distorted signals getting thrown at it. It like notices the clean signal. It's like, oh, this is clearly a break. This is clearly where the gate should be closing. But on that reason alone, the Zool is the best bass period gate, because you give it your clean signal and your distorted signal, and I can just take my hands off the bass on a live fucking smoking stage and I won't feedback. That's how like responsive and tight the Zool is. So for that reason alone, I can't go wrong with it. I have two Zools. I have one for my guitar board and I have one for my bass board. But on my guitar board, I just go straight in and treat it like I would any other gate right after my overdrive. But the Fort and Zool, I haven't screwed with the new Zool Plus yet, but it seems like it's just a more tweakable version with more possibilities on it. But even my old version, one knob Zool, it's literally like halfway, and it's the best gate. And I've used, started on the NS2s back in the day to my decimators, my decimator 2s, my smart gates. I've been through them all basically. And the Zool is basically, other than the decimator, the Zool is the only gate that's lived on my board as long as it has, honestly. It's just, you can't go wrong. Like, it just does such a good job on clamping on tight shit. I can't say enough about it. I'm definitely a Fortin nerd when it comes to that stuff. That Zool is just like unstoppable. And, obviously the 33 and all the other Fortin shit is just fucking so killer.
Nice.
But yeah.
I haven't got to actually mess with any of the Fortin stuff per se.
Mm-hmm.
I have like a 33/grind/TC clone.
Okay. Yeah. Like the TC Electronics booster thing?
Yeah,
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. That's the old what is it, the old Scott Ian trick, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
And Meshuggah.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. No, I'm showing my age.
But like mine's it's like all three pedals like combined into one.
Yeah. What is it, switchable?
Yeah.
Cool.
It's a Michael Klein audio boost. It's just like a one-off thing that he made.
Cool. Yeah, I've been wanting to get my hands on a 33 because I just see everybody, because I have a 2-channel dual rectifier, and everybody I've seen putting their 33 in front of is just like, it's pure gold. I think the person that really sold me on it is, I think, Brody from Rivers of Nile. I think in one of his Kemper packs, he's got like a 2-channel dual recto boosted by a 33, and it's just the tightest recto I've like 2-channel I've ever heard. It's just brutal. But yeah, those things, I've heard awesome things in front of the rectos.
I'm assuming that the EQ curve between the two on my clone is pretty similar
Yeah.
to the EQ curve on the 33 and the grind. And between the two different modes, the 33, I definitely like it a lot better.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It just I like what it does with the low end a little bit better. Like it doesn't one of them completely almost cuts it out entirely.
Yes. One of them, like, it's meant to be like the fully realized kind of tube screamer, fucking cut, the low cut,
Yeah.
I mean. But, you know, that's such a common thing when it comes to boosting things. It's like
Right.
they wanted to cover their bases with that. It's like, I don't know, what is it? The 33 one has, I think the 33 has a bigger low cut, I think it is. But that would make sense if it's the Meshuggah one anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I have to go back and look at the little manual because it's not labeled or anything, so I have to like reference like a little note that I have saved on my phone to.
Yeah, totally. Of course. Listen,
Yeah.
you need cheat sheets.
Yeah. I have to use a cheat sheet that he gave me for the noise gate I'm using. It's like his. I don't know if you follow like Michael Klein or anything. Or
I'm
like,
familiar, yeah.
okay, he's got one called the ball gag. That's his noise gate, and to run it, it works awesome in 4 cable.
Mm-hmm.
But like every time I unhook it and go to hook it back up, I always have to look at the cheat sheet. It's like now which one do the delays and reverbs go into? And
No, I'm the same way because when I play guitar rigs, I don't use anything time based or anything, and the only thing that goes in a loop is a gate.
yeah.
You know, definitely very much a stereotypical metal dude when it comes to my guitar amps. It's like, sorry, one channel, high gain, full on. That's it.
Yeah.
So loop in the gate, please. Then.
Pretty much. On occasion, like I'm such a stickler for an amp to have at least like 2 channels and separate EQ or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And the dual rack I actually like the clean channel on it. I guess I got like one of the lucky ones.
Yeah, no, but they do. Listen, I think everybody realizes like when you get something like a channel switching high gain tube head, you sacrifice something. It's like you might not get the cleans you want out of it, but the fact of the matter is those recto cleans they're just meaty, thick cleans. They don't. It's not like it's a jazz chorus or anything like that, but it does what you need. It's a loud, clean, platform. It's like I don't know when it comes to high gain. When it comes to high gain monsters, I'm just like, hey, you make the sacrifice,
Right. No, for sure. And it's like, how often are we actually using it anyway? You know what I mean?
Dude, I don't. The only time I'm using clean channels if I want to fuck around with a chorus pedal.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, cool, clean intro, dude. It's like, no, I'm good. I just want a chunk.
Yeah. It's like on a rare occasion, it's like, I'd like to play some like Toto or something, and then
hey man, you want to rip out some of those police licks once in a while. It's like, oh, look at me, I'm an established, well-rounded player. Look at my clean tone.
Exactly. You can, I don't know. Sometimes I don't know if you're like me, where you just accumulate pedals and effects and stuff like that, and sometimes you're like, I just want to see what I can make happen.
Yeah, I go back and forth. I have my waves. When I was a young dude, I was like totally pedal fucking nuts, and I just kept on going back and forth over the years and pedal crazy. I think my next thing is I'm just gonna probably get like a Helix or something like that, so I can kind of just cover like maybe like an HX effects or something like that to kind of just like, hey, here's my fuck around tool to kind of have access to any random effect stuff that I might want.
Sure.
Never gets used that much in a real application, but nothing wrong with having some fuck around material.
Yeah, absolutely. I had that. I think we talked about the Helix stuff.
Probably. Yeah, I've gone back and forth with the Helix stuff for years and years, and recently one of my friends, I got him set up with an HX Stomp.
Yeah.
And he basically replaced his bass rig, his preamp section, and he put the HX Stomp through a power amp through his bass cab. I'm just like, wow, this sounds as good as my bass rig. I was like, holy shit. And then we made some guitar profiles and put it through a guitar cab. And I'm like, okay, I got to get one of these just for the versatility's sake and just having so much stuff to screw around. And I just love the idea of being like, oh, here's my full signal chain and a preamp section. I can just put this in front of a power amp and I have a fly rig or something like that. I'm a sucker for like that kind of efficiency because, over the years I've done tons of like flying gigs, whether it be with Fit or like Dysentery over the years, done tons of flying stuff. And I'm always trying to find that perfect death metal fly-in solution, I'd say, because you fly in and play so many random fests and stuff like that. It's like you never know what you're going to get handed, but it's like, hey man, as long as I have a power amp I can slap something into, I'll get something I can use, kind of deal, which I like. I love that simplicity of the fly rig, never having to worry about what backline you're going to get thrown, and that's something I definitely have to fight with a lot over the years, for sure.
Oh, I imagine. No, I was actually messing with my HX Stomp whenever you joined on here.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Just like, I don't know, just dialing different shit.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's it. It is one of the most versatile pieces of gear I think I've ever owned. I had more bass equipment, and right now I just have like this old TubeWorks Most Valve power amp.
Dude, I love those power amps.
It's sick.
Dude. There obviously in today's market, everybody knows the sleepers. There's no such thing as sleepers anymore.
Yes.
Everybody knows what the hot shit is. But 20 years ago, man, when I was rocking my first rack rigs, I had a Mossvalve, the MV962, and that thing, it was like the best guitar power amp I could come. Like, I think I switched it out eventually for a PV Classic 100 power amp, and I missed the Mossvalve.
Yeah.
Like, it sounded better than the all-tube PV power amp I was rocking after. And then the solid state stuff I would rock after. I'm like, I missed the Mossvalve. And I think eventually I went back to a PV Rockmaster preamp and the Mossvalve power amp for a while. And I'm just like, I can't go wrong with this. I got the PV Ultra, in the Rockmaster. Right. And then you got the Mossvalve power amp. It's like, dude, it crushes, man. And it's light as shit. But yeah, I love TubeWorks stuff. I love all that BK Butler era stuff. The TubeWorks, the Mossvalve, all that shit rules. The Bluetooth, all of that stuff. Like, the Bluetooth rules as a bass distortion, and like the real tube preamp kills. Like, that stuff, obviously people know what's up with that, but like that Mossvalve shit was very, very cool. And yes, Jay, my dude, Slope of a Point right here, is asking me about that. In an old band, an old grind band we used to play in, I actually sold our old guitar player that rig, a Rockmaster into the Mossvalve, and he used it for years with like an old Jackson Dinky of mine. I sold it. But yeah, that thing sounded sick.
I've actually looked at a lot of PV Rockmasters and just a lot of like, 1U rack preamp kind of stuff.
Oh, dude. Yeah, I was on that shit for, like that. Like, this was probably like 10, 15 years ago when I was on the Rockmaster, but like I was heavy on the Sans amp preamps. I was looking for all of those one space like preamps. Another sick PV guitar one was the TG racks, because they made a TB racks, which was the bass preamp, and then they made a TG racks, which is the guitar version of it. But I think people just kind of didn't know what was up with them, because I think it was like a precursor to the Rockmaster or something like that.
Oh, okay.
PV was in the 80s era. PV wasn't the best on letting people know what their shit was for. It's like they had like the Roadmaster heads, which were high gain beasts. Obviously, people know the VTMs and the Butchers, but like there's a lot of era stuff around that time that like did that high gain shit really well. And there was a lot, I don't know, I think there's just a lot of confusion on what people thought. And it wasn't until they had like the brand recognition of like the Ultra did they really start to have like a good focus on, be like, these are our high gains and these are our rock things. These are our JCM 800 ripoffs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, like I'm a sucker for old ugly PV. When that shit was like the shit nobody wanted, I was all over that stuff. I was buying VTMs for $100 and turning them around for $400 or $500, and I was all about all of that PV stuff. Old ugly PV, especially the tube stuff. Over engineered, built in the USA, fucking built like a tank. You can't go wrong with that shit. I love that old ugly PV shit.
On that same note, what was that preamp pedal? I think it was actually tube It's like a Road Dog or something.
That was the Dirty Dog.
Dirty Dog.
That was like early '90s. That was like it was early trans tube era.
Okay.
But yeah, it was early trans tube era, and I think the Dirty Dog pedal was like meant to emulate like the trans tube. I guess the best way to relate it is it's post Supreme 160.
Okay.
If you're familiar with that PV solid state
Yeah.
head. I think that's the At the Gates head. But it's like post PV Supreme. They were doing the trans tube stuff, and the Dirty Dog was like one of their preamp pedals, and those are very cool. Those do, they're very cool for like that specific solid state high gain sound,
Yeah.
super raw, grimy shit. The Dirty Dog did very well. I think they made like a programmable preamp version with like DSP effects after that too. PV did a bunch of wacko stuff that really saw small runs and stuff. I don't know if you're on it, but on the Facebook group, the PV Cult page, fucking
I know what you're talking about.
CVLT PV Cult though, fucking they're total dorks on that shit, and they go into that stuff heavy, like way heavier than I ever did, because like the trans tube stuff is cool, but they fucking worship that shit. But it's just a bunch of PV freaks on there anyway, so they're all gonna be jonesing about that stuff.
Yeah, PV fans are kind of like, I don't know, rednecks with like Ford or Chevy.
It's a weird cult following thing, but hey man, some of that stuff is well warranted, because just now people are like, we're like 10 years past the PV moving overseas kind of thing, and like people are really starting to see the value of that old fucking built like a tank PV shit. Yeah, it's ugly as hell and heavy as fuck, but man, that stuff lasted forever. And back in the day, like, fucking Christ, I'll take a VTM 120 on the road now over an old stock JCM 800 because I know it's going to last longer. You know what I mean? It's like, it's over-engineered. They fucking built those things to just last forever. And they know they had to try to overcompensate anyway, because they had to fucking beat out the Marshalls and the Mesas anyway. So, so they had to do that. But in the long run, fucking they created a bunch of fucking monsters that people are just, 30, 40 years now really starting to be wise about, because the internet's there to show them who the sleepers are and stuff like that,
Yeah, coming up in like our local music scene, about 80% of the time, that's what the back line was looking like.
Yeah.
Just some kind of PV.
Hey man, back in the day when you had, my first couple practice amps were old beat up PVs, and I guess show the age again, but before the times of Facebook marketplaces and the Craigslist and shit like that, the only way you were gonna fucking find decent fucking cheap cabs to start your first half stack on was gonna be on fucking the want ads, or finding some silver fucking, the old silver stripe PV cabs and shit like that. That was the affordable stack before, let's say, the Marshall MG 100 RCDs or whatever the hell it was. You know what I'm talking about. Before the Spider 2, which were the first affordable half stacks for most people.
My first half stack was a Spider 3.
See, there you go. Show my age again. My first half stack was a Blue Voodoo half stack. Because it was Marty Friedman that turned me onto that shit, and that was before like the Spiders and stuff like that. That was like one of the, I guess in the 90s, that was the affordable tube half stack. But
sure.
The cab had vintage 30s, and that cab was a Mesa killer. I should never gotten rid of that cab.
A buddy of mine actually still, I think the only head he has right now is a Blue Voodoo. I want to say the 120. Does that sound right?
Yeah, there's like two different eras of Blue Voodoo. There's the BV60 and 120, which is the first era, and then they kind of did like a remodel of it, and I think they did the BV300, which is a 300 fucking watt. It was ridiculous, but those sound pretty sick actually.
I went on a deep dive some time ago, and I was like just trying to look at all the different Blue Voodoo models. So I'm like, I'd love to have just like a cheap beater tube head.
Dude, once in a while, you keep your eye out, man. You can come across a first gen Blue Voodoo for like $200. I've seen them once in a while. Granted, it might need a little TLC, maybe a couple mods, something like that. But dude, fucking a $200 tube head's a $200 tube head. You know?
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. Well, went right into the gear nerdery.
Dude,
Do you have
yeah, that's why I'm here, man.
absolutely?
You know,
Do you
I guess death metal's first. It's rigs of death metal, but rigs is the first word. So, you
yeah?
know.
Do you happen to have anything with you?
Unfortunately, I have two bases upstairs, but I am currently in the Fit headquarters, which is basically a big house full of fucking random shit. We've been practicing for the past week at a rehearsal space where we moved the whole back line into, and we've been doing that out of there. I got two bases upstairs. I got my newest Prestige sound gear, SR 5005, and I got another a Sound Gear Premium Series SR 2405. The Prestige obviously is a Japanese one, and the premium one is an Indonesian one. Most of my Fit bases are the Indonesian Premium Series, and it was my introduction to Indo Made, and man, it fucking blew me the fuck away on those things. Honestly, like
Damn.
the craftsmanship. I didn't realize I was actually talking with my Fit dudes earlier, and Ibanez bought that Indonesian factory, which I believe was originally a Court factory, and
Oh,
they put the Fujigen next through machine in that Indonesian factory.
hmm.
So, which is why you haven't seen next through Prestiges in the past like 7 or 8 years, and the Premium series has next through stuff because they moved that machine over there.
Okay.
So they've been from what I gather, they've been just doing bolt-on stuff out of the Fujigen factory for the past whatever years. But yeah, long story short, I unfortunately don't have too much gear to flex. I am in this little room right here, and I got like, there's like I don't know if you've seen a fucking, there's a, got a
Oh,
recto
yeah.
cab in here. There's a fridge cab behind it, but it's kind of a hodgepodge mess of fucking bullshit cases and taste and bullshit in here. It's because a bunch of bands kind of operate out of here. Because
Yeah.
it's my guitar player, Will Putney's house. So he, his band End also kind of operates out of here. A few of our friends' bands it's kind of like a home base for when people fly in and do a lot of recording here. It's kind of like just a big fucking studio house where bands kind of come in and out of and stuff like that. So kind of shit house here. I would have loved to have done the stream like in my bedroom where I had fucking 15 of my fucking guitars and shit like that. But yeah, like I said, we're just been doing the rehearsals for the past week. But by all means, I can talk about every single fucking piece of gear I own, though, because I have it all on memory.
Hell yeah. Um, so how have you completely finished working on that? What was it? I think you picked up a BC Rich Bitch earlier this year.
Yes. A year ago, I found it's either an 87 or an 88. That time period's a little bit weird to kind of pin down 100%, but it was like the first year they started using licensed Floyds on NJ series, and right after they went away from the Kaler. But yeah, like I think maybe even a year and a half ago now, at a little cool little music shop in New Hampshire, I came across it's an 87 or 88 NJ series bitch, mint, like as mint as a 30-year-old guitar is going to be. There
Yeah.
wasn't a chip on any point. There was just a little indent behind the bridge, like no actual chips in the paint. Like mint, it was an ultraviolet. But yeah, dude, it was so mint. I think I got it for like $250, something ridiculous. Like I saw it in the wall, and it was in the middle of New Hampshire, and it was tagged at maybe like $350, and I was like, nobody's gonna take this. We all know what the BC Rich market looks like right now, and people love that shit. But where I was in New Hampshire at that store, nobody was going to take that thing. So
Yeah.
I was like, I'll take this off of your hands. And they happened to be a Bill Lawrence dealer. So when I was there, I picked up a set of an L500 for the neck and an L500 XL, the dime bag pickup for the bridge. And of course,
Sick.
I flipped that bridge pickup dime bag style. So reverse the pickup, but that thing, it might be one of the best playing guitars I have. The $250 Korean fucking NJ series that I have. It plays so nice. It doesn't hurt that the bitch body shape is literally perfect for like sitting down and playing anyway. But I think that Bill Lawrence pickup in the bridge too is like, I think that kind of made me fall in love with it too. It's just such, it's such a balls out crazy high output pickup. And, don't tell anybody. I know this is Rigs of Death Metal, but I don't really like high output pickups that much.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like a medium hot passive guy. Like I have like a couple Fishman Fluences and stuff like that, but like my favorite pickups, like I got a 7-string with bare knuckle Holy Divers, and those things are kind of like medium output fucking humbuckers, and they might be one of my favorite sets. Like I have a couple of those Blackheart guitars that I use in Dysentery. One of them has like a Sir Aldrich, the Doug Aldrich signature in the bridge. Might be my favorite humbucker ever. It's like it's a hot-ish humbucker, but it's not meltdown level. It's not like my L500XL. It's not like my fucking Fluence Modern or anything like that. It's a fucking kind of middle of the road, but
yeah,
I'm a huge passive guy when it comes to guitar anyway, though. But yeah, that BC Rich bitch, man, it's the guitar that I sit down and noodle with. Like it just, like it just plays so well. You just want to sit down, fucking. And the licensed Floyd for 30 plus years old is smooth as butter, and it's just a whatever early licensed Floyd Rose. There's nothing special about it, but it's so smooth. And sometimes you just get one of those magic guitars that just does it right, and that thing was one of them. And I can't see myself getting rid of it because it's, number one, it kind of fills my pointy itch. Because another thing, don't tell anybody, I'm not that big of a pointy guitar guy either. But yeah, I have a bitch, and I have a black. One of my black hearts is it's like Explorer style basically. But I'm like I guess I'm a classic extreme shape guy. Like I like your Mockingbirds, your Explorers, your classic Flying V's. But as cool as I think they look, Ironbirds, stuff like that, they look better on other people. Warlocks and shit, they look better on other people. That ain't for me. It's metal as fuck. It looks super sick. But like, give me like a bitch, an Explorer, something on the classic vibe, I guess.
Yeah.
But like, I love brutal looking fucking guitars, but I save that for the brutal dudes. I like my double cutaways, my Les Pauls. Definitely a little bit more old school with that shit, I guess.
Oh yeah, no, I kind of love everything now, but it's weird. I've gone through these phases. Like when I was, literally first started playing, I saw an ad with Kerry King playing a Warlock, and I was like, oh, I want that. And,
oh, that sick tribal Warlock thing. You get the starter pack?
Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude.
I think I eyeballed that at like a Sam Goody or something for like ever.
Hell yeah.
And my first guitar wound up being like a Squire Strat, like a red and white Squire Strat. I think it's back there somewhere. But
okay, hell yeah.
Yeah, and I remember just being like, this isn't pointing. But I mean, I grew to love it.
Hell yeah, man. Fucking my first guitar was a loaner from the place I took lessons from. It was a Fernandez sub-brand called Stinger.
Dude, I love Fernandez.
And oh yeah, dude. We all know that Japanese era Fernandez cannot be fucked with. But the one I had, 3 of the tuning pegs didn't even work. I didn't know because I didn't know what a tuned guitar sounded like.
Right.
But then eventually I got like a loaner, like early 90s, like Ibanez EX series. And then I finally bought my first guitar after the loaner from my dad's friend. It was a Arctic white Mexi Strat that I put a black pickguard and hot rails into because I wanted to look like I was in Maiden.
That's sick.
Yeah, I definitely regret getting rid of that guitar. I know most people like to hold on to their first guitars. I don't really hold that much value to that kind of shit, but that Mexican standard Strat, I kind of wish I held on to that thing just because it was the first guitar I bought myself, and it was the first mod platform.
Sure.
It's what I realized. Oh, I want a humbucker in this guitar, not the single coils, because it sounds sicker for metal. That's like what made me realize the kind of thing,
Oh yeah, I wish I was like that. I get too attached to stuff, and then I just wind up with too much shit.
I go back and forth. Fucking I love the value of that shit. I love holding on that stuff, but at the same time, I'm very much like a utilitarian kind of guy. I'm like, does this
Yeah.
fill a hole in my current like rig? Does this do a thing that other things don't do? But at the time, I traded that Squire Strat and a couple other pieces for my first real guitar, which was a Japanese soloist. It was like an SL4, like one of the natural finish ones. It was like a
Yeah.
JB and a 59, or JB and a Jazz, I think it was. But it was like my first real guitar, neck through, good Floyd. So it was the proper step up I needed to take. But I look back on it and I'm like, I still wish I had that Strat.
Right. Let me see here. So I got kind of like a little, again with another cheat sheet here.
Hey man, fucking listen. You're the one. You're the maestro of live streams here. You got to do this shit.
Right. I wouldn't say maestro, but
Well, listen, content creator.
Oh God.
Is that better?
Somehow it made it worse. I don't know how.
Yeah, see, there you go.
Makes you feel like fucking Logan Paul or something. I don't or PewDiePie. That's a
There you go. Yeah. No, you got your brand, baby. You got your brand.
right. So what would you say would be like kind of like your tone inspiration? Like is there anybody specific? Are you like just whatever fits the band kind of situation, or is it like, man, fucking Ryan Martini has a really sick bass tone. I just want to burp or ding.
You know, I think the best way is probably it depends on what the band calls for. Really,
Yeah.
like granted, I have my archetypes, what I consider, like the granddaddies of your tones and stuff like that. But usually, like what I go for is kind of a mixture because, like, I always come back to like when it comes to like guitar tones,
Mm-hmm.
I always come back. I always come back to like, while it might not be my favorite tone to mix in a band situation, like the thickness of a dime bag tone, like that meaty thickness. But I'm much more of a mid-range guy. So like maybe say like the mid-range cut of like your classic thrash shit. Like that real cutting razory kind of fucking mid-range shit, but with that thick, meaty, chunky, I guess, kind of dime-ish style thing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't like it maybe like a bit of like a Black Album style like thickness kind of thing but with a very unblack album and dime style mid-range. Because, like, I love my death metal and I love my classic thick, meaty sounds. But when it comes to extreme music, I'm a mid-range guy through and through. And I want the riffs to be heard as much as possible. But I also want that thickness and that meatiness, So, like, maybe, but when it comes down to it, I guess, long story short, I don't have specific number one inspirations, but it's combinations of kind of little things in there. Bass, I don't think I have so much of like player tones in mind. What I like with bass is I like finding an EQ point which the guitars aren't occupying. Granted, that's obviously a very generic thing to say, but like with bass tones, I kind of like a gritty kind of distorted thing. And I like my gritty distortion end to be kind of like a guitar style crunchy gain.
Yeah.
But a very specific mid sculpt in my bass, because what I love about a good fucking grindy, distorted mid grindy bass tone is the way that it meshes with a good palm mute on guitar. Like it doesn't happen that much because let's be honest, metal bass is metal bass most of the time. But when you hear a good, like crunchy, like gnarly, mid-range, heavy bass sound blending in with a big wall of guitars, something gets filled in that you might not necessarily be able to articulate that well. Like, I guess a good example is if you're familiar with the And Justice for Jason kind of stuff, the And Justice for All tracks with bass put back in.
Oh, yeah.
The bass tracks themselves are very mid-range heavy. So if you hear those tracks, you'll hear how much it fills the entire EQ spectrum out. Because Jason's bass tracks were very mid-focused. So when you throw them into the actual Justice EQ sound, which is very much a hard V, it's all chunky, chuggy guitars, kick drums, and cymbals. And there's nothing in the middle. And that's why when you turn Justice down real low, you can hear fum 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 fum, no definition in the shit. You know what I'm saying? It's shing 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 shing. Wow, that's sick. That's metal as fuck. There's the clarity that gets missed.
Yeah.
You know, and like if you listen to those Injustice for Jason stuff, I just like it. It's a good example to go to. Is like you hear those bass tracks thrown in. Those bass tracks are so mid heavy, it adds a clarity to the guitar that wasn't there. It adds a cut that wasn't there, and like let's say you might be able to pick out riffs easier by ear instead of just trying to listen to a guitar. You have a nice meaty cutting fundamental from the bass. And that's something I really try to do with the bass, especially in Fit for an Autopsy, because like we kind of like have this rule. It's like don't occupy each other's sonic space.
Sure.
The guitars, like we like a nice meaty low end sound, but fucking the second there's too much shunk in that palm mute, fucking stop, roll your bass back a C hair.
Yeah.
Because that's where the bass lives.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as the bass is being performed properly and EQ'd properly, it's doing all that work for you. And you have more room for the guitar mid-range, and you don't have to worry about moving into that low end area so much, and then you have more guitar cut in the long run, you know? I know I might be running in circles on that shit, but like when it comes down to it, I'm a mid-heavy guy regardless of guitar or bass, but there's good mids and there's bad mids, you know, fucking, you know, but there is such thing as taking out too much mids in my opinion. But I really can't say too much shit because some of my favorite bands barely have mids in their fucking guitars.
Right.
But, you know, that's the magic about a lot of brutal death metal and traditional death metal and stuff, you know. It's just kind of it's a product of what the sound calls for and what tradition and the style is called for.
Yeah,
but
sure.
You know, I've never been afraid of having that traditional chunky, super fucking chunk guitar shit, but making sure my mids are at a minimum of 4. You know, because I want those mids to cut through as much as my highs and my lows, because you know it's when it comes down to it, metal is a guitar music. It's based around guitar, and if you want to hear those riffs, I want to hear every bit of the range of the EQ in those riffs. Granted, you know, there's ideal EQ ranges and there aren't, but you know, I think mid-range, well, in today's nowadays modern metal climate, mid-range in guitars is obviously a much more recognized thing.
Oh, sure.
But like, you know, coming from the school I came from, a very old school, classic metal school, you know, I fought earlier on to be the mid-range guy and be that the cutting sound, but it's way more obviously of a popular thing nowadays. But it's something I learned real early on. You know, once I got out of the bedroom, putting my Boss GE7 in the loop with a hard V sounds sick until you play with a drummer.
Yeah.
And when you play with the bass player and vocals, and then you're like, why is my guitar lost? Or why do I have to turn up my amp louder than the other guitar player? It's because that mid-range, a portion of that mid-range is a portion of the volume. It's a portion of the cut, you know. But that, yeah, blah, 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 long story short. But that's where I sit as far as what I go for EQing and tone-wise. Like, I'm a disciple of the Dimebag school and the old school Metallica and thrash school. But yeah. I think maybe I dial a little back on my low end a little bit, and I kind of let bass guitar fill that void. You know, I'm kind of a firm believer in, guitar and bass are all fundamentally mid-range instruments, but let the bass carry that lower end of it, and let the guitars carry the higher end of it. Because the fact of the matter is, if you try going too low end heavy with your guitars, you're not going to get that shit heard. Like, you might hear that in the practice space, and that might sound sick, but you go into a mic'd venue, and you go into a bigger room, the only thing you're hearing is mid-range in the guitars.
Yeah.
You know, so that's really what comes down to it. And I'm not saying I put my bass at 2, but you know, there's that good middle ground.
Oh, absolutely. I kind of two different occasions kind of taught me a lesson with proper EQ. One was I saw Morbid Angel live, and every band ahead of them was playing like some 5150 style amp, and
Yeah.
all had a fairly similar tone, and they all sounded fine. But
Morbid is rats into a fucking Marshall. It's a fucking whole different ball game.
oh yeah,
Yeah, fucking, it's just it's just
right.
grind. It's just dirt and fucking just garbage. Fucking like just, oh, it's so dirty. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
It's just so different.
and then the other occasion was when I was actually playing bass, and I was playing bass for just a live show, and I guess the way I had it EQ'd, it basically got completely swallowed by the kick drum.
That's one of the downfalls of like the heavy mid scoop, man. That's when you scoop that hard, the only thing you're competing with is a kick drum and cymbals.
Yeah.
And that's real tough. Granted, bass is a different kind of ball game too, because metal bass is allowed to be a little bit more scooped. But
sure.
But there, it's all about, that's why you find so many graphic EQs on bass amps and stuff like that, because it's all about tailoring the proper mid range. Because like low mids are where the mud is.
Yeah.
High mids is where that fucking snarl and that crunch is. It's like you want less low mids and you want more of the high mids.
Somebody was asking you directly here, do you recommend dialing in your tones at performance level so as to avoid the Fletcher Munson effect?
I don't know what the Fletcher Munson effect is, but I'm guessing by the context of the question. But yes, the answer is yes. I would absolutely dial your shit at a reasonable practice, like a reasonable like band volume, because especially with 100-watt heads, higher wattage heads, they're not meant to operate at that lower level. Like, let's just hypothesize. Let's say 100-watt tube head is full out at like 5. You don't want to EQ your head at 2 because the head isn't pushing its full spectrum at that volume. You don't have to be at drum level, but you want to get a nice cranked level before you have a real proper EQ level. Because when you dial it low, when you dial an amp too low, you don't get proper proper real-time assessment of what the low-end response or the high-end response on the amp is. Because we know a 100-watt tube head, the way it breathes on the low end opened up is huge. And you're not going to get that out of a low, a quieter amp. Maybe if it's a 50-watt head or something like that, that's much more doable. But, on big boys, you really need to be at a decent, decent volume level. Because you'll find if you EQ an amp too quiet, we were fucking doing this at fit rehearsal, because one of my guitar players, Pat, he just got one of those the new 5150 Iconics.
Oh yeah.
He just grabbed one of those for practice, and we've been kind of dialing them in. By the way, they're fucking sick. Fucking those things are under $1,000 new, and I was like, shit sounds good, man. Shit sounds real good for under $1,000, built-in noise gate, fucking XLR cab sim out, preamp out. Fucking, I was like, this is way too fully featured for a head. But regardless, fucking, and that's something we were doing because we were screwing around with it. But I was like, bring back your highs already, because you're gonna turn up and it's gonna be fucking screechy as shit. And it was the case, because things are fucking, they're 80 watts tube, whatever the fuck you rate those at. But you can't. You need the full amp's volume potential before you can really EQ something, in my opinion. Otherwise you're just going to be screwing yourself over, or maybe confusing yourself on what the amp might sound like.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And here we go. Here's the proper explanation of what the Fletcher or Munson effect is. Yeah, makes sense.
Basically, when the volume is influencing the equalization, bass treble frequencies come through differently at lower to higher volumes.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, fucking, it's, I completely agree, yeah. It makes perfect sense too. It's like, a practice amp at full volume is one thing, but a 100-watt tube head at full volume is a totally different thing. But yeah, I always try to EQ my shit at full performance volume, because when it comes down to it, that's what loud amps are going to be used for live performance. So you really need to be getting that full real-time effect out of it for sure.
I always have a hard time hearing things out of context, like whether I'm doing my very amateurish mixing here at home writing, or if I'm jamming with people. It has to be, I'm constantly going back and forth. Like, I have to hear like a full mix, and then I'll go and adjust stuff back and, you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally, dude. It's fucking, same here. I'm very much an amateur fucking dude when it comes to at home with my fucking mixes and shit like that. And I'm, compared to my guitar player Will, who's literally fucking world class, and it's me just fucking amateur hour.
I'm sure he can hear like a specific frequency and point it out, like, we need to dial it back at like 1K or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, being more in depth with recording and shit like that, I've gotten a lot more in tune with that shit. I've kind of definitely followed my ear more often than I probably should have, but being a lot more mixing, hands-on mixing with my demo shit now has got me a lot better with that shit for sure. But,
yeah.
I also have no problem with doing that back and forth thing, because it's real time application. You hear one thing by itself, but when you throw it into the band, it becomes something else, and you got to keep on going back and forth. But I think that also helps you tune your ear better too, because you start to get used to, all right, well, what do I think is good and what is actually good,
right?
Or what I think cuts and what actually cuts. They're two different things sometimes, which comes back to that bedroom scooped mids thing I was talking about, because that's a perfect thing. It's like at home by yourself, you're like, holy shit, this is crushing. But then you go bring it into a full band atmosphere, and then you're literally the guitar player that doesn't get heard. It's like,
right.
it happens.
No, absolutely. Well, focusing on songwriting, or changing gears on the songwriting, I get the impression that Will and Pat probably take on probably a lion's share of the fit writing.
Yeah, in fit, it's definitely like Will is definitely it's like Will and Pat formed the band originally, so obviously they're like the mainstay dudes. And over the years, Will has definitely kind of taken the head as far as becoming like a big proponent of the band's direction and focusing on the content wise. But for sure, and when it comes down to finished songs and stuff like that, it's 90 85%, 90% Will, and then we kind of bring in our things. I pretty much, we might have like arrangement ideas and stuff like that, but when it comes to like my personal input, I come with bass input. I come with, pretty formed songs, but I get to have free reign as far as what I'm going to input on like my bass playing and stuff like that. Like in the tracks, it's just like, all right, put my spin on it, because prior to me joining, they didn't really have maybe the most bass centric outlook on it. It was often a lot more focused on supporting the guitars a lot more of the time. So I think when I came in, I kind of maybe added a little bit more of a, because previously before me, bass was kind of getting recorded by Will and stuff like that, and kind of, obviously some room, but with me, obviously I take the plate on completely, so it's definitely a lot more to offer on that stuff. But long story short, yeah, it's a lot of the brunt is definitely taken on by Will for sure.
Right.
Which sucks, because he has to record, mix, and fucking master all of our garbage.
Right. Well, as far as your other projects going on, like Dysentery and like Scatter Remnants and stuff like that, what would you say is your bigger inspirations for riffs and everything else?
Well, Dysentery, obviously. Dysentery is the band I've been doing the longest now. I joined that band in 2007, I think, like that. But with Dysentery, obviously Dysentery is viewed very much as a quote unquote slam band, But what we try to take pride in is obviously we try to be very creative rhythmically and, have, fun, chunky groove stuff. But like at heart, we're still a death metal band, and I'm still at heart a death metal dude. I wouldn't call myself a slam dude. I like your old school stuff, your reputilations, your dehumanized internal bleedings, all of that. That's the kind of school I come from. So I guess it's the pre-slam, even though, we all know IB created slam and all that stuff. But, I come from a riff school. I'm like, I like my old school Deicides, my Cannibals.
Sure.
I love Old Demolish, one of my favorite bands. I'm a death metal riff guy. And I think the grooves and that shit kind of come just kind of out of me and my drummer, Eric, kind of throwing ideas back and forth, and just, I think, kind of just looking to think outside of the box, because we all know that shit.
Mm-hmm.
Slam is a hard game because it's overdone so many fucking times nowadays. It's been its own genre for 2 decades. It's like, I'd say the inspiration maybe might not come from bands so much, maybe to kind of just like what comes naturally now. Like, riff wise, when I say riff wise, I mean non-slams. It all comes from the classics. I come from a very classic old school heavy metal background, thrash, new wave of heavy metal, and all that shit. So I think maybe I might think more of a kind of a little traditional sense, or maybe a classic old school, but like razor sharp, like shit, like old Deicide, Morbid Angel really comes to mind. Fucking really locked in, fucking like rhythm and shit. That's where my Pantera influence comes from, I think. But Dysentery, like, I think we don't get. I think maybe earlier in the years we got more band influence, but now it's just kind of like, what can we do to still sound fresh in a very stale genre? And I think that just kind of comes down to not listening to a lot of bands in that style, and just kind of be like, what's a fun groove? What can we bounce our heads to? What has a little spice to it? What makes us brush our shoulders off a little bit sometimes, maybe fucking turn our hats a little sideways sometimes, But, Dysentery is really informed about the groove and patterns and rhythms. And I think riffs kind of come out of that most of the time. With Scattered Remnants is kind of a different ball game, because for people who don't know, Scattered Remnants is a old school 90s Massachusetts brutal death metal band. And I just recently joined them like 6-8 months ago. So I'm adapting to an already formed style. They have a couple demos and a full length. So it's like, I'm going in there trying to emulate the Scattered Remnants style.
Sure.
So I guess with that band, my main influence is in fact going to be Scattered Remnants.
Sure.
But I try to inform it with my own take on death metal. But I kind of, when it comes to real death metal riffing, I might get a little bit more twisted and outside of the box. Like I said, I love a lot of Demolish. I love a lot of like really dissonant, later Gorguts stuff. I really love that shit. Fucking outside of the box stuff. So, but with Scattered, I kind of try to find myself like reeling myself in a little bit more. And the real Scattered Remnants influences come from like the 90s, like Embalmer, Embalmer's a huge part of that, like Mortician style stuff. Really chunky 90s shit is really the bread and butter for like the Scattered Remnants sound. But like with a little emphasis on like Death Doom shit, because Scattered Remnants has like some bigger, doomier riffs and stuff like that like I'd almost say are like, they're almost like fucking death metal, like Grief style riffs or something like that. But I guess I'm still finding my way in Scattered Remnants, but like I've started contributing and writing new material with them, but it's kind of, I guess, Scattered Remnants informs my Scattered Remnants riffing more than anything. And I'm also doing one other project with my vocalist in Scattered Remnants, who we've done tons of bands over the years with. That band is called Exorcist. And hopefully we'll be having our debut demo out in the next month or two. We've been really behind with that shit, unfortunately. But Exorcist is completely informed with first wave death metal in mind only. Autopsy, fucking Cancer,
Awesome.
fucking like Early Immolation, you know, fucking like Rotrevor, old, real dirty classic, like Dismember, sweetest stuff. It's just
Sure.
bare bones, back to basics, fucking death metal. Like we formed that band with the intention of like, let's not even fucking think about these songs. Let's just fucking jam it and fucking go with it. You know, Early Pestilence, that shit, fucking just riffy, kind of thrashy, but it's half heavy metal, half death metal. But obviously, people will hear that demo soon enough. But I think in the first demo, it's really informed by old Autopsy, Asphyx, Massacre, all that shit, basically. Fucking meat and potatoes, really, is what it comes down to with that stuff. But
Awesome.
that's my first time really foraying into the OSDM, we'll call it, style. But it's a style I've loved since day one, but I never played. I've always been like a brutal death metal guy my whole life, playing in bands. I blast a lot, I chunk a lot, fast riff a lot. So Exorcist is kind of my way to kind of do that thing.
No, I absolutely get it. I get barraged with new death metal and new like subgenres constantly, especially
Yeah.
since this page.
I'm
So
sure.
so my like constant refresher is I'm going back and I'm listening to just like every record that James Murphy's been on, for one.
Hell yeah, dude.
But you know, shit like that, like just going through and really deep diving in on every death record, and like you said, like Cancer and just stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, you know, we're also lucky enough to, what are we, 25 years into the internet age at this point, and probably in the past 15 years, the well of information has just opened up so much for people being able to, like, 25 years ago, you know, your exposure to the greats of death metal and stuff like that was buying the CDs. Now you go
Yeah.
online, and within 2 months, you can be informed about the entire first wave of black and death metal. You know, it's like, and you could be like, yo, dude, I'm highly informed on all the Necrovore demos. And 15 years ago, you could only find dudes that were the most underground that was into shit like Necrovore. You know what I mean? It's like now they're like regarded as like, fucking bread and butter. But shit like Cancer and the James Murphy stuff over the years, like Disincarnate is like getting the love and the adoration that fucking they deserve now, and being that top tier level. But they only got so far back then because it was James Murphy's band, and now it's like, oh no, this is literally the creme de la creme of fucking death metal on this album.
And I mean, to be fair, that's how I've gone back and discovered Disincarnates, because of James Murphy. But
That's the only reason why I found Disincarnate back in the day, man. I was like, oh, fucking, that's how I found Cancer. Because, start with Obituary or Spiritual Healing. It's like, oh, who's this dude? And then you find
yeah,
Cancer, and then you find fucking the Obituary albums, and you find Disincarnate, and then you find all the shit he's produced over the years, and all that shit. It's the same thing as when I was a kid. Fucking, I found Motorhead because it was in like an Anthrax thanks booklet or something like that. It's like, it's all just, when it comes down to it, fucking, I harp on this a lot too. It's like, if you want to be able to create, you have to know the past, and
yeah,
there's such an overwhelming well of that. It's like you can never stop learning. You're never going to stop finding cult bands that were doing cool things before anybody else. It's just like, to go forward, you have to go back.
yeah,
And that's, and in my opinion, that's the only way that extreme music has evolved so much, especially in the past 20 years. It's because people being fully cognizant of the history, and like let's say the proliferation of like technical death metal or tech thrash or death thrash and all that stuff. It's like people in the past 10-15 years finding shit like Oblivion and fucking like all these crazy thrash bands that were like Forced Entry, and like all of these forward thinking thrash bands that were literally just like unknown. And now that we have all of this shit, it's like, oh, these are literally master classes in the style, yet fucking they were just unheard of,
yeah,
shit like that.
absolutely. I full confession. since you brought up thrash, I just this year finally got into Sodom.
Hey man, fucking better late than never. You know, it's
Right?
all good. You know, everybody gets into their shit into this shit at their own pace. How old are you?
I'm 30 as of this year.
Well,
Yeah.
see, fucking, you know, that's perfectly fine. I think, you know, I was probably in my mid 20s before I was jocking Sodom. You know, they
Right.
were just one of those names I had heard over and over again. But I was probably younger.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, just listen to Sepultura. It's like, no, dude, Sodom, fucking, you know, Teutonic thrash, man. It's like it's the next level of pissed off, brutal thrash. It's like, but hey, man, like never late than never. Like I don't fucking give a shit when the hell you get into it, as long as you get into it. And you know, it's the same thing with, you know, people might want to rag on, you know, people for making, you know, Slipknot was my gateway into this, or this band was my gateway into that. I don't give a shit. Fucking if you get
Right.
into the real shit, cool. You know, everybody gets into their own pace. Not everybody's like, yo, dude, I've been sick OG since I was fucking 13. It's like, no, dude, don't worry. Fucking, I heard Seven Churches when I was like 18. I'm a fucking poser too. It's like that shit wasn't. I didn't find that shit when I was a kid. I was listening to fucking power metal and like old school thrash and British heavy metal. I didn't. Death metal was too much for me. I couldn't fucking handle it yet. I thought the riffs were cool, but the vocals were fucking weird. You know, it's like everybody gets into this shit at their own pace. You know, fucking, I was all traditional heavy metal until I was like 17 or 18, and then I was like, okay, I can finally get down with growled vocals. But whatever, you know, everybody
Yeah.
gets their own pace, man.
It was funny for me. I went through a real weird. So like my early teens and everything, we still had FYE. MySpace and all that had not taken off yet. So I was still, what album has a really cool cover? Kind of, you know what I mean? Like
Hey,
that was
man,
still me as a
you're
kid.
speaking my language, man. Speaking my language.
So I'll never forget. I must have had a really cool FYE because I bought stuff with parental advisory all the time, like 13, 14 years old.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And like I got Cannibal Corpse, Kill, um, Children of Bodom, Hate Breeder, and a Megadeth live album all like the same day.
Yeah.
Like I would skip, like, you know, I would get like money or whatever from my parents. Oh, I'll get, you know, for lunch or whatever, and I'd just
Yeah,
spend it
yeah.
on CDs.
Oh, yeah, man.
So, and I remember like getting into, you know, like I said, you know, some of the bigger names, but like Cannibal Corpse and Cradle of Filth and Children of Bodom and like some heavier stuff. But then all my friends were into like this newer asymmetrical haircut, skinny pant, metalcore stuff, and like Bring Me the Horizon and stuff, and Suicide Silence. And I was like, okay, this is different. I was like, that's kind of cool.
Hey,
And
man, you
got
know,
sucked into that, and they made fun of me for liking like I had some friends that would throw out the term generic for Cannibal Corpse, and I'm like, how?
because they probably viewed it as old man metal.
Like that has to be it.
Because if they're into the of the time modern metalcore stuff, it probably sounded like old hat to them or something like that.
Right.
Because, you know, yeah, that's no, I get you, I get it. You know, I feel it.
They're not even doing gorilla stances and doing halftime breakdowns. Like,
Hey, man, what they were listening to is cool, fresh, and hip. Obviously,
right?
you listen to the passe shit.
Right. It's like unless they have a V that goes down like halfway down their chest, it's not cool.
Yeah, no, I lived through all of that. So, you know, through all the times of the V-necks and what happened when I was just fucking interested in playing my fucking malignancy worship shit and just fucking as many pinch squeals and fucking chugging as possible.
Oh, yeah. It's awesome. I always kind of enjoyed being the kind of like the standout of the crowd. You have a sea of all these kids that wearing Devil Wears Prada or whatever, and I'd be the one like weirdo wearing a Cannibal Corpse long sleeve.
Hey, you know, fucking yeah, you know, I know in those scenes they like to segregate and fucking and like pinpoint and stuff like that, but you know, I kind of bring this all back to like in the 90s when I was starting to go to shows a lot. Like metal and hardcore were a lot more mixed on a lot of bills and stuff. You know, I'm from the Boston area. I grew up in the Northeast. We kind of, I think, have a little bit more of an intertwined metal and hardcore kind of thing. It's a lot more one and the same for us. Depends on who you ask, but obviously. But I'd go to both when I was a kid, and you know, fucking, you know, I kind of see it as the same way. Granted, you know, some people might be like, "This is my cool music." That's not as cool, but it's like, it's all heavy, distorted guitars just doing the different shit. Granted, I might think one style is kind of weak. But, you know, you think of it, a lot of those people who are into that style might have moved on to heavier stuff eventually or got it out of it entirely. But, you know, at least it's there as a springboard. You know, like, I know a lot of people like to harp on the whole subject of this and stuff like that, but I don't know, maybe I'm too old for it at this point, but I'm just like, dude, nothing's for everybody. Fucking, you know, and whatever got you into heavy music, yeah, you know, some people might have gotten into some wussier shit gotten first. But you know what? You know, we all get there. You know, in the 90s, I had the first 2 Korn albums. You know, fucking, you know, yeah. But you know, I also had my fucking Cannibal Corpse albums, and I had my Anthrax stuff. It was all the same to me. You know, and eventually I found out where my sweet spots were, and you know, everybody's got to do that eventually. You know, and Christ, fucking, and the people that don't narrow it down and keep that broad spectrum, you know, you see that more in Christ. You can hear it in Christ in a band like Fit for an Autopsy. We definitely cover a lot of ground musically. Like, we have our death metal elements, we have our metalcore elements, we have, you know, modern metal elements, we have melodic elements. You know, that's, you know, that kind of melting pot shit is also the byproduct of like all of those years of the Cannibal Corpse dudes and the Bring Me Horizon dudes, and sometimes they're the both in one person. You know, it's fucking, it all just helps things evolve more and move further. You know, granted, some of it's positive, some of it's negative, but you know, we wouldn't have been able to evolve the genres of extreme music as far as we are now if it wasn't for some of that stuff, as much as I might not like some of it. You know, I try to see the positive of all that shit, I guess.
No, I absolutely agree. I'm way less of a stickler about, I don't know, well, for lack of a better word, gatekeeping, I guess. You know what I mean? Like,
totally. Fucking.
At this point, I'm just like, who gives a shit if, you know, because I'll be in moods where I'll listen to some pop music or something that, you know, would probably make most gatekeepers cringe.
Yeah.
You
know? No, dude, fucking, like, I don't know, the whole, like, I get it. Metal is outsider music made by outsiders for outsiders. There's going to be apprehension of having it open up in that stuff. But, you know, gatekeeping is only going to turn off more people. You know, I in my opinion, you know, and like, I'm going to let people enjoy what the fuck they like. And, you know, nothing is for everybody. And gatekeeping, you know, like, I understand people want to keep metal as their own, but the fact of the matter is, as much as metal is outsider music for outsiders, it also has this element of it's for everybody, because it's for the downtrodden, it's for the weirdos, it's for the dudes that don't follow the normal paths maybe. And when it comes down to it, that's still everybody.
Sure.
You know? So it's like, fucking, you know, I know some people want to gatekeep and keep their special club for themselves and stuff like that, but I don't know. We're in the year 21. That special club is very big now.
Oh,
you know, it's like, it's too big to gatekeep. You know, maybe if you want to do it in your super, 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 super fucking subgenre fucking wheelhouse, that's great, you know, because obviously we'll always see that kind of shit in, like, let's say brutal death metal and, you know, super underground black metal circles, and that shit's going to happen. But that's why that shit keeps on going further and further underground.
Yeah.
It's meant to stay there too, you know?
Yeah. Which, I mean, it's cool to see in one way, just because it really shows how passionate fans are and how personal it is to them.
Exactly.
But it feels a little out of touch with the reality at the same time. It's, you know, it's like, I get it, and that's cool and all, but at one point you need to kind of mature and grow a little bit and realize doesn't really achieve anything trying to like gatekeep and like, because really what we're talking about is like people just trying to like bully each other on the internet,
Yeah.
or like they see somebody in a t-shirt and like, huh, name 3 songs, you know, stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like it
Yeah,
doesn't,
no, I totally feel that.
if honestly all it really does is alienate people away from what we're,
It keeps people from getting into metal.
yeah,
Hmm.
which you know,
But
in my,
that's why we have our Slipknots, our Bring Me the Horizons, and
sure,
all of this shit, because that's made by the people that aren't that interested in the gatekeeping and stuff like that, and
yeah,
those will be the gateways for those people. Granted, I think the whole gatekeeping thing and moving past that might have to do with some people's stance on growing and becoming different people and stuff like that. But I was probably way harder about my gatekeeping 15, 20 years ago. That's for
yeah,
fucking sure. But I don't know, over the years playing to all the people, getting out there, playing shows for people, it's like you want people to have this shit, like that's the reason you play shows. It's the reason you put out albums, is you want people to find it. And the more you put out, you want more people to find it. So when it comes down to it, well, do you want to gatekeep or do you want people to find your shit? Choose.
yeah. It as obviously we grow and we mature and we kind of come to these realizations too, but what's really helped drive it home for me over the years, in my hometown there is zero there were 0 locations for like all ages venues.
Yeah.
Like when I was first getting into the music scene, we had at least half a dozen or more, at any given time, or even like certain people that kept their houses open for shows, for small
Yes.
local shows and things like that. And now there's one like legitimate music venue in town. It's not all ages, of course.
Yeah.
It's a bar. I mean, it's a cool place. It's a nice place, and we get a lot of cool acts to come through there. But there's no all ages, so it makes it really hard for anything new to come up.
Yeah.
So no growth at all in our area.
Yeah, I feel that too. I that happened a lot to me when I was growing up, because in the Boston area, there was everything was 18, everything was 21 plus, everything's
Yeah,
bars and stuff like that. And the only ways a lot of the time I had ability to see the shows was at halls, VFWs, Knights of Columbus's,
yeah,
where you could rent the hall and it's an all ages show, and that's how I would see a lot of that shit. But yeah, that's fucking. But that's a much bigger thing as far as the venues are concerned, and because that has to do with liquor laws and all that shit. Like I know with Boston, is the reason why a lot of this shit is 21 plus is liquor license. It's as simple as that. I remember playing shows. You'd play the set and you'd have to get the fuck out. If you're under 21, kind of shit. But yeah, that is a huge problem. Obviously, you find as you go through the U.S., different scenes have way different things with that. And like you said, you have one venue and it's not fucking, that's definitely a tough thing. And that's definitely one of those byproducts of the individual scenes in the US.
yeah, for sure. But I don't know. Maybe things will expand and get and change up. Or
Everything goes in waves, man.
yeah,
Like I said, when I was growing up, there was like a huge influx of shows happening in halls, dorm rooms, fucking function halls, and all this shit. It's because the demand was there. And hopefully in the future, it just breeds something else, fucking.
yeah,
Like I used to book a lot of shows in Boston and stuff like that. And the reason why is because the bands I liked weren't fucking coming. And I realized that it wasn't happening in anything but 21 plus places. So I started trying to bring my friends' bands that were on tour that wouldn't come through. And,
yeah,
it's got, sometimes with that kind of shit, it's like, well, you got to do it yourself sometimes. And
sure,
that's the only way. Like Boston, like in the Boston area, like I brought Gorgasm to Boston for the first time. Like Defeated Sanity, like the first few times in Boston was because of me and shit like that. And they wouldn't have come otherwise, but fucking I knew the opportunity was there and there could be potential for it. It took a while, for people to get wise to it, but now in Boston, we have a great thriving death metal scene, you know, and it's something I kind of didn't think I would see 15 years ago. You know, it's sometimes a very slow wave, but you know, if somebody wants to fucking do it, but it's also the beauty of extreme music and underground music. There's the DIY ethic behind it, you know. It's fucking all you got to do is find the cool place, cool house, cool basement, fucking book a show, rock and roll. You got an all ages venue.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems over the last, I don't know, few years or so, you see way more internet-based and streaming-based bands pop up, like, you know, your one-man, you know, groups and things like that, or
Totally.
you know, a couple people putting out music. I'm kind of hoping, because it's gotten so popular and there's so many people now that, like, I was able to score an endorsement, you know, with WB gear and get like strings and.
Oh yeah. No, well, I have SIT through Dysentery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got the size picks from Intune off of your recommendation.
Yep. Hell yeah.
But it just kind of goes to show you, you know, the market's not just, you know, how much do you tour, or what, you know, what kind of, you know, what does your band do as far as live shows. I'm kind of hoping it eventually gets to the point where it makes it full circle, where you could have an internet-based act that, you know, gets so popular from doing that. Somebody like, I'm going to give a pop music example. Somebody like Joji,
Mm-hmm.
or Corpse, you know,
Yep.
one of the guys that they get a ridiculous internet following.
Yeah.
And then it crosses over into what we would consider the more traditional musical success. They start getting to go play shows and, you know, sell out, you know, concerts. And, you know, in his case, he's even on, you know, he's been on like talk shows and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah.
I'm kind of hoping to see something like that like come out of just even at a local level, or, you know what I mean?
You're definitely going to see more of that. You know, obviously we're kind of still in that transition period, but
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is the worth is there for content creators and people, you know, maybe with just a YouTube or an Instagram space, but you know, it's obvious, you know, like Ibanez has fucking they put out last year a signature model with that dude was it Ichika Mo on Instagram. He's just a crazy tapping guitarist, Japanese dude. Amazing. But the only presence he has is internet. But he has a SIG. You know, it's like, it's possible. It's very doable. And, you know, more today now, like, you know, let's say you go for an endorsement deal and they say, we need you to be doing like 100 shows a year. Dude, that might not even be the case. You could probably submit fucking 20, 25 shows a year and it's cool. Like, you know, I've got a bunch of endorsements through Dysentery, and Dysentery is not a touring machine. Yeah, we've done a few US tours. We fly in here and there, do some Europe tours and shit like that. But like, I got Dysentery taken care of with SIT, with SpectraFlex cables, with Intune picks, you know, with all this stuff, just grassroots fucking death metal shit, you know?
Yeah.
Because the fact of the matter is, you know, the showing your worth is as important as doing the work at times. You know, like, you know, I'd you know, obviously I don't know for sure, but like, you know, I'd like to think that some of the endorsements that I managed to line up through Dysentery isn't 100% based on just shows played. It's the presence, making, like, you know, I push gear. I'm always talking about gear. You know, I try to, you know, you try to add value to yourself as the endorser, I guess, you know, because it's like, outside of me playing in bands, I'm a fucking gear nerd. I talk to everybody else about fucking gear. You know, people always want to pick my brain on that shit, and that shit is worth it too, you know. Fucking, like you, for example, you run an Instagram page devoted to fucking guitar gear and metal.
Yeah.
But you got hooked up with WB, so it's like, you know, it's doable. It's completely doable. You know, like, social media in these platforms has made it very, very doable, and in my opinion, almost as viable as any band, dude. You know?
Yeah. exposure is exposure.
Exposure is exposure, especially nowadays. You know, fucking the band over there fucking grinding their ass off, fucking touring 200 dates a year versus the other band that fucking has their social media game down pat and only plays fucking 50 shows a year. Guess what? The band with their fucking social media game down pat is probably going to pull it in better because they have more worth, because they have better reach, you know?
Yeah.
Like, but then if you have the social media reach and and you grind on the road, well, that's like almost the fucking perfect storm kind of thing.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's kind of like, you know, I'm fortunate enough to have that with like the fit thing. And like, I'm also touring a lot, but I'm also that fucking dork dude who never shuts up about gear.
Absolutely. Well, we all are, aren't we? You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? Well, man, I just got a couple questions left for you here.
Yeah, shoot, man.
So, what would you say would be your goals as far as your music, whether it's improving on specific techniques, or maybe you're just trying to accomplish something within your bands and like get them to a certain level, or something like that? Like you have a dream tour you want to go on, or you want this better record deal, or whatever it is.
Honestly, my number one goal always is to create as much music as humanly possible, to make as many releases as I possibly can. That's probably why I'm a fucking band whore. But you know, like I'm always trying to like, you know, maybe put out a release every year, every other year as much as possible. Just try, like, my goal is when I'm fucking done with this planet that I have a fucking stack fucking this fucking high of my discography, you know? Like I started in the past couple of years, I started collecting like all the CDs I've recorded and like released on labels and stuff over the years. I think I got like a stack of like 12 CDs or something like that, of like actual, not demos, like recorded released products on labels and shit. So it's like I'm trying to make that stack as big as I fucking can. You know, that's definitely one of my goals. And, you know, as far as just making music is, you know, fucking right now, creating this first Exorcist demo and finally getting it out, because I already started writing the next one. I'm 3/4 of the way done writing a new Dysentery full length. That unfortunately is going to be a little bit slower because we're just kind of operating on a slower kind of tick right now. But you know, hopefully getting the 4th Dysentery full length done and that out of the way so we can get back in action with that. Fit, we just want to go as far as we can and see what we can, how far we can take it. You know, we're lucky enough to have a great label like Nuclear Blast behind us, putting out our second album with them. You know, things have been going great with that. We just want to get as many cool tours and do as much as we can. I think I already, fortunately, have kind of gotten my dream tours out of the way, I'm lucky to say. Because in my time, I played bass for Internal Bleeding for a couple of years, and I got to, we toured with Suffocation for a full U.S. tour. That was definitely bucket list material. You know, getting to see Suffo every night for a month straight was pretty sick. And probably another one of them is a couple of years ago, Fit for an Autopsy got to tour. The tour was Hatebreed, Obituary, and Cro-Mags.
For that one.
And we opened that tour package, and if you told 16-year-old me that I'd be opening for fucking Hatebreed, Obituary, and the Cro-Mags, I would have fucking lost my mind, because that's fucking literally childhood shit for me, you know? So I'm fortunate enough to have gotten some good check marks off on the bucket list, but we're not stopping anytime soon. We want to keep going and see how far we truly can go and do that. But my personal goals is to never stop creating.
Yeah.
You know, like fucking for as long as I can remember, I've always been in multiple bands, just trying to tackle different styles of extreme music as much as I can. And that's really my goal, has always been to just create as much as I can and leave as much of a mark as I can musically. Granted, I'm not trying to say I'm fucking Bruce Springsteen or anything like that, but if I can look at my stack of CDs when I'm on my deathbed and be like, yo, I'm happy with that, I'm cool. You know, that's really it for me. It's just creating as much as possible.
I need the same motivation. I really
Dude, I'm one of those guys that like started like my first serious band at like 17, 18, and then I just haven't stopped doing bands since. I never, if one band broke up, I started two bands, you know, like there's never been downtime for me in the past 20 years. So and ever since I'm like, yeah, I love this too much to stop. Like, it's too fun. I love jamming. I love loud amps. I love hanging with my friends, dicking off, playing cool shows, traveling to new places, you know, drinking as much coffee as I can.
Yeah. Maybe one day I'll get back out there on it, but
hey,
you
man,
know,
fucking, it's never too late to fucking stop grinding, man. Fucking, I'm pushing 40 right now. Fucking, you know, I'm here to do it as long as I fucking can, man.
Yeah. Kids and marriage will eat up a lot of that free time, but
hey, man, fucking, you do what's best. Fucking,
sure.
You know, I have a lot of dudes in my bands that are family guys that have to do their shit, but you know, number one, as long as you're happy. Fucking, as you know, as long as you're doing what feels right, whether it be jamming in bands or being a family man or fucking creating your own empire or just keeping yourself afloat, man. Fucking, you focus on number one.
At this point, I would just be content setting more time aside just to write and put out music. Honestly.
Hey, man. Well, you know, fucking just program those drum riffs and start fucking riffing on it.
I think I might have sent it to you. I'm actually working on entrance music for a buddy of mine that does pro wrestling.
Yes, you did send that to me. Yeah.
Dude, I actually scrapped that one, and I've completely I've written a whole other one just between last night and today. And I just sent it to him like right before we did this, just to see if he wanted something a little more evil sounding, because he's he does like a heel character, you know.
Okay, yeah.
He's real into like Brody King and Aleister Black and guys like
that. He wants that dark imagery. Yeah.
And he, you know, it was kind of fun. It was made me kind of step into a different frame of mind.
No, so dude, that's
needed.
It's, you know, fucking, I know we're metal guys and all this stuff, but it's always good to try to branch outside of your comfort zones a little bit, because that shit really does make you better in the long run. And like, case in point for me is joining Fit for an Autopsy, because I am a death metal guy through and through, and Fit for an Autopsy is definitely the least death metal project I've ever done. Granted, still firmly rooted in that, and it's an extreme metal.
Sure.
But the band is really based in melodic stuff and stuff that's maybe a little bit outside of my box. But I tell you what, it's only made me a better bass player and a musician, being able to approach melodic ideas differently. And fucking, you know, it never hurts to do a little shit that maybe isn't 100% your comfort zone, because it really does make you better in the long run.
Which, not to gush, because I know nobody really digs that too much, but man, which I haven't got to hear the entire album front to back yet. I've heard probably about half of it, but especially the track "Far From Heaven," the songwriting has just gotten to such a ridiculously awesome, such a dynamic and well thought out level.
Yeah, I very much agree. This newest album, it's really, really, really well done. I'm very, very proud to be able to part of it and to be able to like put my bass playing on it and stuff like that. But yeah, I consider myself very lucky, especially with Fit for an Autopsy, to be in such like a cool, unique, creative atmosphere that just allows me to have fun and just be the best I can be in this situation and kind of branch out a little bit. You know, it only helps me, even if I'm playing brutal death metal, it still helps me. You might not hear it, but it's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds phenomenal. So y'all should be very, very proud of it.
And anybody, we're definitely very proud.
I'm sure everybody who's stuck around this long for this is, you know, a big enough fan that I'm sure they've heard it. So
everybody that's stuck around this long is a fucking trooper, because this is punishing.
Listening
to me fucking wax poetic about fucking guitars, that's fucking rough.
Speaking of which, your singer just popped in. What's up, Joe?
Oh, I see him. Fucking the old Joe Bad. Bojad. Oh, thanks, Joe. You know it's legit because he's got the little check mark next to his name. He's verified.
You know, I actually probably need to do that. I probably need to do that. I probably need to actually trademark or copyright or whatever the word is for our name.
Hey man, you better get on that shit. Somebody's gonna get that domain action from you.
I need to.
Bojad baby.
Chad. That's awesome. Well, man, us gear nerds love this shit. Absolutely.
Hell yeah, fucking Joe, my man. Hell yeah.
But man, I know I've held you on here for quite a while, so we'll just we'll kind of wrap this up. I normally ask everybody what their top 4 death metal bands are to kind of conclude this. I want to split it up a little bit here. Give me 2 death metal and 2 slam bands.
Well, okay. Well, my top 2 death metal. Number 1, Suffo, baby. Fucking Pierce from Within is the greatest death metal album of all time. So that's gonna be a number 1 for me. And I guess number 2 I'll probably put Carcass.
Okay.
I'm an absolute sucker for everything up to Heartwork, man. Fucking I know it's kind of a divided issue, but I love Heartwork, man. I got that shit tattooed on me. It's fucking one of my favorites.
Oh, it's
fucking,
great.
it's the perfect blend of classic heavy metal and death metal together. But I love I love all the polar shit. And I gotta say, I love the shout out for the Polar Crispy Boys, because fucking Polar Seltzer for life, baby. And fucking my dude over here, who's been a fan since the first band I've ever done, Raising Kubrick, and Porphyria, my second band, basically. So this dude's fucking been around for a fucking while. My dude. Fucking since back in the day, 20 years ago, shit.
Damn.
Hell yeah. But I guess my 2 slam bands, I'm gonna put internal bleeding, because the masters, there wouldn't be it if it wasn't for them. And I guess I'm probably gonna put Dehumanized. I maybe some people might not classify them as slam, but they are crushing, and their grooves are just unmatched. And when it comes to, if we're gonna put bands that inspire Dysentery more than anybody else, it's Internal Bleeding and Dehumanized, because they have, they just have the undisputed grooves, the freshness. Shit pops collars and flattens brims for you.
That's awesome.
Fucking football riffs, see? Fucking Ben knows what's up. Football riffs, that's the fucking meathead shit. Fucking the football players just crushing nerds to the fucking slams.
That needs to be on a t-shirt. Like, I might have to steal that one for.
Dude, it's okay.
I'll football riffs and crispy boys. That'll be.
Dude, that's the way to live life. Football riffs and crispy boys. Love
Absolutely. It. Hell yeah. Well, dude, I appreciate you so much taking the time to do this. I know you all prepping.
Pleasure is all mine. Thank you for putting up with my my late ass and fucking taking forever to do this live stream. But yeah, I had to do some rock and roll practicing first. And thank you to anybody who actually waited an hour plus after for the actual live stream for this. So you guys all rule for that too. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you all for tuning in. Blue, man, I'm sure I'm going to talk to you here before too long about something else gear related and nerdy.
We fucking better.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah, man.
Well, hope to catch you all out on the road sometime soon. For as long as I've listened to you all, I have yet to get to see you guys play live, and it's killing me.
Well, fucking, when you just hit me up when we are rolling through your area, and fucking we'll meet up for sure.
Hell yeah. Can't wait,
Hell
man.
yeah, dog. Fucking right, man. It's an absolute pleasure, dude.
Absolutely. Same on this end.
Cool.
So,
sick, man.
Thanks, everybody, and y'all have a good week.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate that shit. Have a great night, guys. Peace.
Later.